Hey everyone, welcome back to the brewery. I am gonna shut this door because the dogs think I'm talking to somebody. I am, you guys. Working on some projects in the brewery, trying to get things ready before winter arrives. I'm trying to remember back to what last winter was like, trying to brew out here, and things that were happening and needed to be fixed. And one of those things you wouldn't really think of as being a winter project, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm trying to improve my glycol chiller, which really just seems like the opposite. But I'll catch you up on some other things before the end of the video that I've also done to improve more for winter temperatures. This isn't really relevant to that, but I want to show you an exciting idea that I've come up with, and I'm kind of testing at the moment. You might hear it in the background, and see what you think. So, a couple of the main problems, or a couple of the things that separate my homemade glycol chiller from a professional unit is, one is the capacity. This doesn't have nearly the capacity of a professional or even an entry-level unit. I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked prior to this video, but I'm pretty sure in the past I've seen the Brewbuilt glycol chillers starting at about 7 to 10 gallons. I think that might be a little conservative, but somewhere in that 10-gallon neighborhood. And the reason you want such a large capacity is obviously more glycol at a low temperature is going to last longer than a smaller amount. And so that was one of the things I was trying to improve with this new setup that I'm working with, is to increase my capacity. So I've tried a number of different ideas. They're scattered all over in a mess here. Tried dishpan and a different brand of dishpan, and 2 of these shoebox sized totes and different things, and finally I've landed on this as an idea. So what we have here is my original container. This is just a cut-off fridge size water cooler, and surprisingly this thing holds about 2.5 gallons. So that's pretty good. 2.5 gallons is what I started with. However, up until now I was never using the upper shelf of the freezer. And so I've been looking for a container that fits just right up there, and finally found it in this Rubbermaid shoebox, is what they call it. And so that slides up there, and that is a 6-quart container. So that's adding 1.5 gallons to our original 2.5, or in other words, about a 30% increase. Don't quote my math on camera. So the thing that has to change with that, as you can see the waterfall here, is we need a way to get the glycol from one to the other, since they're 2 separate containers now. So what I'm doing is I have my return line, this is just temporary now, running into the top shelf, and then I have 2 of these plumbing elbows up near the top of that, because I want it to, when I'm not using the pump, I want it to sit at full capacity. Otherwise I would flood my lower container. For example, if I had one of those elbows halfway down, I could only fill that container halfway up, and if I wanted to fill it more, it would overflow. So I went with 2 of those just in testing to see if that was enough of a flow rate to keep up with the pump. If it was too slow, I'd be overflowing the top because the pump would be returning the glycol faster than I could drain it. And really it can't be too fast. Too fast isn't going to be an issue because we're up at the top of the container. So I might add a 3rd or a 4th or whatever. So that's the main improvement. You might also notice that the coolant is now pink. And what I've realized is that RV antifreeze is just propylene glycol that's not food grade. And so previously I had purchased 1 gallon of propylene glycol and mixed it with water, which I read online somewhere that that's what you were supposed to do, but I was really disappointed that it was sludging up at anything less than about 10 degrees, and it's rated for like -30 or something like that. And that was also about a $30 or $35 gallon. This RV antifreeze is $3 a gallon. And so I'm giving that a try. It's rated for -50, and so I'm using that as kind of my second advantage here, is being able to take it down much colder than I was before. I used to have to hold it at about 10 degrees, and because that was so much closer to the temperature I was trying to get to, it was really a disadvantage. If I could start off with way colder glycol, I think I could knock off the initial temperature in the fermenter before the glycol starts to rise. That's kind of what you're fighting, is you want the fermenter temperature to drop, and then the glycol temperature is rising, but you don't want them to cross over higher than the temperature you're shooting to get to. So a lot of times I could maintain fermentation temps. I couldn't really lager in the summer, in the heat of summer, but if it was maybe 60, 70, 80 degrees out at the hottest, I could maintain about 60 degrees in the fermenter, about a 15 or 20 degree advantage. Where it became an issue is either on a real hot summer day, when it is now 100 degrees or 110 in the garage, and I can only maintain 90 or something like that. But also wanting to cold crash my fermenter, so take it down at the end of a batch of beer, take it down to near freezing temperatures of about maybe 37 or 38. Because I only had a 20 degree advantage on ambient temperature, I actually have never successfully cold crashed my fermenter, because I couldn't do it. And I don't think I had this set up last winter to even give it a try. So anyway, those are two of the things I'm hoping to gain with this new setup. And at least at the moment, it seems like we're keeping up just fine. We're draining at a rate that is keeping up with the pump returning glycol. I do think I'll add a third drain, because I just don't want to risk it. If something were to happen and all of a sudden the pump kicks up a little bit higher, I don't want to be flooding the freezer with pink fluid. So anyway, that's that. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, a couple other things I picked up to hopefully improve our winter setup. I made a video, and I might insert a clip of that here, on insulating the garage. And basically all I was able to do so far is the ceiling space on this front half of the garage where the brewery is located, and eventually I would like to do the walls in this same space. And then I think one thing I wanted to do is put some sort of a canvas tarp, or just a real thin layer to act as a wall, which would seal out our two windows, but also cut this space in half, so I could hopefully keep it warmer a lot easier over here. Because if you remember to last winter, one big issue I had is that my faucets would want to freeze. I'd have to lay a heated blanket over these if it was going to be a cold night in order to keep these from freezing, and that's bad. If these freeze and burst, these are $50, $60 a piece, and you don't want to be doing that. So that brings me to the other two things that I've done for this season. Underneath my neoprene cover here, I've added a new Brewbuilt conical heater. Those are new in general. It's an idea that I wanted to use last year, but Brewbuilt didn't have an offering at the time. The only offering was from SS Brewtech, and it was like $150 or something. But the Brewbuilt is, I think, 30 or 35, and if I remember right, that's a 40-watt conical heater. So right down here where the yeast is at, and it's active during fermentation, is the main place that you want your heat to occur, or your temperature control to occur. And so I've got that added there. That's going to help keep that warm. It'll also help keep our drain and our other drain somewhat warm, just to have a warmer temperature nearby, to hopefully help with that. And I do, of course, have my other 40-watt heater from last year underneath the cooling jacket. And the final thing that I've added, I'm trying to think of what it was. That's right, I can't think of it because it's not here yet. I am looking to add an oil-filled radiator-style space heater. I've used the same thing in my ham shack, which, if you're not aware of what the ham shack is, you can check that out on my other channel, which is Blake's Garage, or by username, it's Blake1138, I believe. I'll provide a link to the channel in the description down below. And I'm going to be putting a video up on that channel to sort of promote this channel as well. So anyway, what I've done in my ham shack is I have an oil-filled radiator-style heater, which was something new I was trying last year in order to keep my vintage electronics equipment warm in the very cold winter months, because it would literally have frost on the face and the case of my vintage radios, and that is not a good thing. And so what I've got is that out there with a thermostat on it, just a plug-in style thermostat set to about 45 degrees. So I could probably even go to 40, but just enough to kick on and gently warm that shed when things get real cold. And I'd like to do that same concept out here. Stick one of those out here. And I think another advantage will be that'll help with the amount of condensation that occurs during brewing, because we've got our 8 or 9 or whatever 10 gallons of wort boiling, and that's putting off a huge amount of condensation and steam, and it's not a good thing to have that much steam trapped in a building or structure. It's getting into the wood, it's getting on the windows, all of everything in here, and I'm hoping that the heater will help to fix that. But anyway, those are the main updates for now. I appreciate you watching, and I do have a kit in the cupboard to get started on an Irish Stout. And so stay tuned for that. Hope to have more videos coming in the very near future. And I do appreciate you watching. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing as always, and I'll see you on the next video.